No! No! How could I let this happen? How? I tried my hardest, true metal gods, believe me, I did. But the power of the pussy poser pop metal punks, it's too much. It's too strong. They have won this battle, but they will not win the war. I'm so overwhelmed with emotion, I'm gonna drink a beer. It really isn't that big a deal. It absolutely is! And you know what? I demand a recount! Okay, sure. Well, 51% of the Metal Meltdown audience said yes to reviewing every Bring Me the Horizon album, a video in which we review every album made by English rock and metalcore crew Bring Me the Horizon. And 49% of the Metal Meltdown audience said no. I don't know if you've noticed, but the number 51 it's a bigger number. That means there were more people that wanted this than there were people that didn't. So, what do you think this means? It means the election was rigged. No! Yes! Rigged, I say! By all these pussy posers listening to hipster metal and twinkcore instead of real, true, classic heavy metal! Stuff that puts hair on your balls, not vaginas on your balls! Wow, you know what? I don't have time for this. Chompy! Get him out of here! He's done for the day! You can't silence me! I'm Thrashin' Jackson! I'm a real metalhead! I've been listening to metal before you were born! Oh God! Ah! Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! Get him off! Get him off! Where are you taking me? Where are you taking me? Ah God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Ah! Okay, so today, by what is, technically speaking, popular demand, we are reviewing every single studio album from Bring Me the Horizon. As per the norm with videos of this type, style, and variety, I am not interested in demos, live albums, or compilations, or anything released by any kind of solo or side project. I am interested in all 6 Bring Me the Horizon full-length studio albums, excluding Post-Human Next Gen, because we literally did just review it. So if you want to know about that record, just go watch that video. Go watch that instead. That's fine. I'm not offended. It's okay. We will, however, be throwing 2 EPs into the discussion, Post-Human Survival Horror, and also the Experimental Electronic Music EP, which we will neatly summarize as Music I Listen to. It has a stupidly long title. It's kind of crazy how long the title is, honestly. That's what we're going to call it. We're going to talk about that EP too. And we're starting off with Count Your Blessings, released in October 2006 via Visible Noise and Earache Records. And this is, frankly, completely unrecognizable from what Bring Me the Horizon are doing right now, and frankly, even from what Bring Me the Horizon would be doing just a few short years after this. In these very early years of the band, Bring Me the Horizon were playing around with a mix of, like, mid-2000s deathcore and melodic death metal similar to what, like, Darkest Hour and the Black Dahlia Murder might have put out at the time. Like, you have a lot of twin guitar leads and jagged riffs and little melodic nuggets, and the whole thing is a little bit more raw and unhinged and edgy. The album, without fucking question, lacks refinement and polish and cohesion. The first couple of tracks in particular, it really just feels like a jumbled bag of riffs and grooves and ideas just kind of clumsily glued and stapled together. Not a huge fan of the album's very, like, juvenile and lazy sense of humor, too. You got song titles like Tell Slater Not to Wash His Dick and, like, Braille, and then in parentheses for Stevie Wonder's Eyes Only. I don't mind a bit of, like, provocative, edgy, dark humor now and then, but that's just dumb, That's just lazy. Like, I know you guys were young at the time, but like how young? Were you 12? This makes me think you were 12. But as the album goes on, it kind of feels like Bring Me the Horizon are starting to like kind of find like this balance of like deathcore, melodic death metal. The hooks get a little better. Everything feels a little bit more balanced. I mean, cuts like Liquor and Love Lost, a lot like Vegas, I Used to Make Out with Medusa, they're genuinely kind of fun. Like, I don't know, I'm kind of liking these subtle melodic guitar riffs and these like kind of noisy guitar tones with this beefy riffage and these super venomous, visceral vocals. Like, yeah, it could definitely benefit from being, musically more tight and competent, but I don't know, man, I found it kind of fun. It's kind of charming, I'm feeling a 2.5 to 5 on this, but honestly, kind of an enthusiastic one. Like, it's not great, but I don't hate it, It's clumsy and it's messy and it needs a fresh coat of paint for sure, but like also, when it works, it kind of works. It can be kind of fun in some parts here and there and some spots here and there. I don't know, if you're in the mood for some like raw, mid-2000s, deathcore, mellow death kind of stuff, this might do the trick for you. Honestly. Next up, we have Suicide Season, released in September 2008 via Visible Noise and Epitaph Records, and this is a massive improvement in absolutely every possible capacity. It's bigger, it's bolder, it's more mature, it's tighter musically, it has more cohesion and structure to it. Like, the songs actually feel like songs and not just hodgepodges of generic grooves and riffs and breakdowns and a few tasty melodic licks here and there. The deathcore influence has been toned down, but in its place we have new influence from like 90s metalcore and early 2000s post-hardcore. And I think this works a lot better with the kind of music that Bring Me the Horizon is trying to make at this point in time. Like, this feels like the kind of album that Count Your Blessings wanted to be, You've got The Come Down, which starts this record on a really strong note with some more raucous and punchy gallops and grooves and riffs and beatdowns. You've got Football Season Is Over, which throws in some classic hardcore and post-hardcore influence on top of some pretty twisted, menacing, chaotic riffage. Now, there is still a tiny morsel of that edgy juvenile lyricism present, namely on the cut No Need for Introductions, I've Read About Girls Like You on the back of Toilet Doors. But you know what? I'm willing to put that aside because that track, honestly, kind of a banger. It kind of goes hard. I like how it kind of tries to lull you into this false sense of security with this more quiet, laid-back, jazzy kind of intro of some smooth keyboard licks and a little bit of like static and grain. Kind of makes it sound like an old-timey like little ditty, Nothing. It's harmless, it's safe, it's whatever. And then all of a sudden just these like crushing, unhinged, deathcore-esque beatdowns and pummeling assaults. I like that Ollie is sticking to these more anguished yelps and screams across the record instead of these more generic kind of death metal gutturals. I think it adds a lot more emotion and dimension to the music. Great production work from Fredrik Nordstrom too. He did so much good for this band back in the day. I'm honestly feeling like a solid 4 to 5 on this. Fun fact, listening to this album in preparation for this video was the first time I ever heard this album, like in its entirety. And I was shocked at how well it held up, and I was shocked how much I ended up enjoying it. I think it's a really great record, honestly. Check it out if you haven't already. Next up, we have There Is a Hell, Believe Me, I've Seen It. There Is a Heaven, Let's Keep It a Secret. Released in October 2010 via Visible Noise and Epitaph Records once again. This album is essentially building upon the foundation of Suicide Season, going into more eclectic and experimental territory, incorporating industrial and symphonic influences, electronic influences, clean vocals and choral vocals. Bring Me the Horizon are also collaborating with Josh Franceschi from You Me at 6, Josh Scogan from The Chariot and Norma Jean, and also Canadian Juno Award-winning indie pop singer Lights. That's a name I haven't heard about in a long goddamn time. Jesus Christ, I remember when Drive My Soul was playing on Chum FM. God damn, I'm so old. I hate this. I hate this so much. Overall, the record is darker, moodier, a lot more introspective. I feel like this is the moment where the Bring Me the Horizon that most people recognize as Bring Me the Horizon kind of starts to really take form. And while I really appreciate how much bigger and how much more ambitious and expansive this record is, I kind of prefer Suicide Season. I don't know, man. I don't know. Definitely some great stuff here, like Crucify Me and Don't Go, both of which featuring the aforementioned Lights. Great cuts. Love the vocal chemistry between Ollie and Lights. Love the contrast. Songs like Alligator Blood, The Fox and the Wolf, Fuck, also pretty cool, pretty great. I love the size and the scope of these cuts, but I also love that they still have a lot of like bite and venom to them. Songs like Alligator Blood, The Fox and the Hound, Fuck are genuinely pretty cool. Lots of variety. I love how synths and strings and acoustics and like really brutal moments are all implemented and fused and meshed together. Like, there's nothing I fundamentally dislike about this album. I just find I prefer the sound and the feel of Suicide Season. Plain and simple. I think maybe it's just because I prefer the more raw and visceral approach of that album, whereas this just, it's a little bit more overproduced, I guess. It's not overproduced, but in comparison, maybe it is. I don't know. Whatever. Still a really good album. I would still give it like a very enthusiastic 3.5 out of 5. I would still recommend it. I just wouldn't recommend it over Suicide Season, frankly. Next up, we have Sempiternal, released on April 1st, 2013 via RCA and Epitaph. Fun fact, back in the day, when this album came out, I hated it because I was a shitty, stupid, fat little metal elitist gatekeeper who only listened to thrash and death metal. I was really no different from Thrash and Jackson in that sense, you know? I hated this record. I thought this was a stupid fucking record. But hey, that was 11 years ago. A completely different time. A completely different Robert. I'm a new Robert. A different Robert. I'm now the host of the Metal Meltdown. And I feel it's fine. It's alright. I definitely don't hate it anymore. But I'm not feeling it either. I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I don't know. So let's start with the good, because there is a lot of genuine good here. I'm not going to take a fat, steaming, dumping shit on this fucking thing. I like how big and diverse this record is, drawing influence from electronic music, from ambient music, from alternative rock and alternative metal. I like how immersive and atmospheric and even progressive this album can be at times, and I like how all of these new ideas and tones are fused with what the band was doing so well on their previous album. Just like how There's a Hell, Believe Me, I've Seen It built upon the foundations of Suicide Season and then went bigger, this too builds upon the foundations of There's a Hell, Believe Me, I've Seen It, and gets even more bigger. And there are some really impressive and cinematic and cathartic moments on this record as a result of all of that, such as And the Snake Started to Sing, Seen It All Before. But some of these hooks just do nothing for me. Like, I feel like we're just going into really generic kind of like early 2010s melodic metalcore kind of territory here, you know? Like, it's so flat. Not incompetently performed or produced, like there's a lot of passion and a lot of energy. The hooks themselves just don't grab me in any meaningful way whatsoever. And I'm sorry, but the opening cut, Can You Feel My Heart, it's a dumb cut. It was dumb 11 years ago, and I still think it's dumb now. And it doesn't help that, like, any possible weight that track could have had has been like, just, it's like null and void because that song has become such a fucking meme these past couple of years, you know? This is definitely where I risk creating some controversy because this is, from what I understand, such a popular record, but fuck it, whatever. I've also no interest in being dishonest, so I'm not going to be. I just kind of thought this record was okay. I'm giving it a 2.5 out of 5. I gave it an honest shot. I definitely like it a lot more now than I did back in 2013. I don't hate it anymore. That's a plus. That's good. But overall, this ain't my thing. I'm not feeling it. This ain't my cup of tea. I will stick to the other records, please and thank you. Like, even Count Your Blessings, warts and all, I just feel like I had more fun with that record. I feel like I connected more to that record. Plain and simple. Next up, we have That's the Spirit, released in September 2015 via Sony Music Entertainment, Columbia Records, and RCA. With this album, Bring Me the Horizon are leaning even further away now from their metalcore, post-hardcore roots, and I think that's actually for the best on this album. They're embracing less aggressive styles of rock and metal, primarily hard rock, alternative metal, fusing that with a lot of the tones and ideas and influences of Sempiternal. And I actually think that all of that stuff, like the electronic and ambient stuff and the alternative influences, it just meshes better with what the band is doing here. Like, everything just clicks a little better for me, and everything just makes a little bit more sense to me here on this album. It has a better flow, the hooks are stronger, more punchy, more memorable. The album just feels more dynamic and expressive as well. It helps that it's not as bombastic as Sempiternal either. Like, I'm not being hit over the head with these, like, massive overproduced choruses and, like, synthesizer displays, you know? Like, you do have some genuinely solid riffs and hooks just kind of anchoring everything down. Like, it does go into more experimental, epic territory, but it succeeds because simultaneous to that, it just feels more grounded. You've got Happy Song, for instance, which pairs some moody, sarcastic, bitter lyricism with some genuinely pretty, like, groovy, dirty riffs and such. Cuts like Doomed and Throne as well do a great job at creating these kind of big pop metal anthems with dark electronic shades and vibes as well. Follow You is an interesting cut as well. I like how it gradually transforms from this more minimalistic, moody synth pop number into a more evocative, multi-layered alt-metal ballad of sorts. I will say that the album does maybe go into more generic Warped Tour, Hot Topic kind of emo pop metal as the album goes on, but honestly, it's well executed, even if it isn't like my kind of thing, you know? Like, there's some solid hooks, some solid riffs, it gets the job done. And there's still even just a few twists and turns here and there to keep you invested, like the closing number, Oh No, in particular. Honestly, a very underrated cut from Bring Me the Horizon, just totally embracing, like, synth pop and dance music and fusing that with really moody, intimate tones and vibes and textures. I'm feeling a semi-solid 3.5 out of 5 on this bad boy. I enjoyed it. Honestly. Yeah, I dig it. Cool. Next up, we have Amo, released in January 2019 via Sony Music Entertainment and RCA once again. This is the moment where Bring Me the Horizon completely, officially embrace pop rock and pop metal and electronic rock, and it's a very divisive and slightly controversial album as a result of that, but honestly, I kind of like it. I think it kind of works. This is not a One More Light scenario. This is something Bring Me the Horizon 2 have kind of been building up to since Sempiternal, and I think it works really well for them. It definitely has some heavy moments on cuts like Mantra and Wonderful Life, the latter of which even features Danny Filth from Cradle of Filth. But, you know, for the most part, this is a full-on pop rock, electronic rock record. Plenty of weird, funky moments as well, like Nihilist Blues featuring Grimes, which is this very trancey, sensual, electro-pop kind of rager. Then there's I Don't Know What to Say, which brings this album to a simple but sweet finish with some tender vocal work and some nice string and acoustic parts and some nice electro beats all kind of working in unison. Then there's Heavy Metal featuring Razel, which has these very upbeat, bubbly melodies and hooks with some more distorted kind of industrial guitars and beats. The opening cut as well, I Apologize If You Feel Nothing, I think is a genuinely pretty nice cut. It's got some dazzling electronics and like keyboard parts that like really grabs your attention right away. There's definitely a few very generic, one-dimensional, forgettable pop rock snoozers on this bad boy, but you know, for the most part, I am kind of enjoying it. It's eclectic, it's fun, it's vibrant, it's colorful. It does everything I expect a good pop album to do and a little bit more, so I'm giving this a 3.5 out of 5. Would this change your mind if you were anything like Thrashin' Jackson and you hated Bring Me the Horizon and you hated pop music? No, definitely not. I'd be willing to bet a real pretty penny on that. But if you're an open-minded person and you approach this record with an open mind, I think you'll find much more to enjoy than you will to not enjoy. So, yeah, 3.5 out of 5. It's pretty good. Next up, we have the experimental ambient electronic EP mini album entitled, and this is the entire full title, not a joke, this is real, Music to listen to, dance to, blaze to, pray to, feed to, sleep to, talk to, grind to, trip to, breathe to, help to, hurt to, scroll to, love to, roll to, hate to, learn to, plot to, play to, be to, feel to, breathe to, sweat to, dream to, hide to, live to, die to, go to, often abbreviated to music to listen to, released out of the blue in December 2019 via Sony Music Entertainment and RCA. And it's an album. It's definitely very real. Of all of the albums that Bring Me the Horizon made, this is definitely one of them. It's very confusing, and there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of very abstract soundscapes and atmospheres. Like, you don't really have hooks or riffs or beats per se. You just kind of have these things that just kind of happen, and they occasionally coalesce and symbolize something, and sometimes they're just kind of there. They just exist, you know? The album is a little bit aimless. I think almost intentionally, like very much by design. It just kind of flows and vibes and does its thing, and you're either along with it for the ride or you're not. And that's just kind of it. It doesn't help either that the album is so long, so bloated. It's 75 minutes long, and it spends so much time just kind of meandering and simmering on the same little soundscapes and textures and atmospheres over and over and over again for like insane lengths of time. For example, there is a song entitled Underground Big, which is 24 minutes long, and it features in its entirety, and I am not exaggerating or joking, a distorted vocal sample which is used as the foundation for a beat. On top of that, there are some vocals that are added and some trippier kind of keyboards and guitars, and then it goes back to that vocal sample and it just kind of repeats that ad nauseum until the very end, and it sounds like the members of Bring Me the Horizon are just kind of casually having a conversation on top of all of that, just like about making music and art, wanting to do what they want. And it's like, what the fuck am I doing here? Yeah, I'm feeling a 2 out of 5 on this. I dig me some ambient, electronic, experimental music now and then, but this just ain't it. Plain and simple. It's a little too weird for its own good, a little too confusing and aimless and potentially aggravating. And yeah, I respect the idea. Great. There are parts of it I dig, but yeah, probably your worst album. Cool. And finally, this brings us to Post-Human Survival Horror, released in October 2020 via RCA and Sony Music Entertainment. So this is the first entry in what is now known as the Post-Human album EP series. Why did it take so long to get the second entry? When are we going to get the other entries? I don't really know. But I can tell you that this album was written, recorded, and produced in the midst and at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that's important to note because that is something that this album deals with conceptually and lyrically across the album. Dealing with isolation, dealing with disease, and trying to find coping mechanisms, and trying to do better and feel better. There's even stuff that like Ollie was doing in his personal life during COVID-19 lockdowns that influenced this album. Like, apparently he got really into Doom Eternal during the first few weeks of COVID, and that's when he decided to call up Mick Gordon, the composer for that game, and go, hey man, you want to produce the fucking album? You want to make some music? And he did! Musically, this is also a bit of a return to form. I mean, there's definitely still a lot of pop and experimental influence, but like, you know, there's more like metal and metalcore happening here. And this all kind of culminates in an incredibly strong selection of tunes. Like, Parasite Eve is unironically one of the best songs Bring Me the Horizon have ever released. And then there's Teardrops, which kind of deals with the 24-hour news cycle and the mental anguish of the constant, seemingly never-ending stream of bad news that we all kind of got all throughout 2020. In fact, Bring Me the Horizon specifically cite the murder of George Floyd and the kind of like societal uproar and division that caused, as influence for this specific song. And I love that despite all of this, this isn't a bummer. Like Kingslayer, for instance, is one of the most fun songs Bring Me the Horizon have ever done. Why? Because it features baby metal. That's why. Tons of other great collabs too, like Obey with Youngblood, 1x1 with Nova Twins. The closing number 2, One Day the Only Butterflies Left Will Be in Your Chest as You March Towards Your Death, featuring Amy Lee from Evanescence, is genuinely kind of gorgeous. Like, just great vocal chemistry between Ollie and Amy, lots of great melodrama and dark spooky goodness. It gets bigger and more bombastic, with more strings and more synths, but it never feels overwhelming. It closes on a really strong, provocative note. It's amazing how much Bring Me the Horizon are able to get done on this thing. Like, they're able to be, like, really provocative and touch upon things that are really important. And also, they're just letting loose and having fun and collaborating with all these really cool people, you know? They can write these big, fun, provocative pop metal, alt metal, metalcore ragers, and then also do big, sweeping, lush ballads and such. Like, it's dense and it's varied, and they're able to do all this and be all these things within a 32-minute package? That's crazy. That's insane to me. 4.5 out of 5, unironically. An incredible fucking EP, album, mini album, whatever. I don't even give a fuck. Whatever you want to call it, it's fucking incredible. It's awesome. I love it. Like, this thing's fucking great. And voila! Reviewing every Bring Me the Horizon album. You asked for it, or at least 51% of you did, and you finally got it. Now it's your turn to tell me, what's your favorite Bring Me the Horizon album? What's your least favorite Bring Me the Horizon album? How would you rank everything in their discography? Did I get it wrong? Did I get it right? Did I get it maybe somewhere in the middle? And what happened to Thrashin' Jackson? Is he okay? Yeah, he's fine. He's probably just drunk somewhere, honestly. Hey, look, the subscribe button. That's so crazy. Who put that there? Look, post-human next-gen album review. Look, something else. That's even crazier. Whoa! And make sure to have a great day. I love you. Cheers.